Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. Um, in the past few years, I've done a few videos about Nintendo Switch Online, the expansion pack, and NES, SNES games that I think should be added. So I thought, oh, why not do one for the N64 games, which I actually don't have the expansion pack because I personally don't really think it's worth it. I mean, if you, I've done videos on it and stuff, but, if any of you have it and enjoy it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to knock you for it or anything, but even though I don't have it, I still thought, like, hey, why not do some N64 games that could be added and stuff? Because, well, with the direct from a few weeks ago, they announced upcoming games, so we know what games are coming till probably about somewhere next summer, I would guess. you know, because of the number of games that they showed that were upcoming. So it's like, what about other games that come after that? Like, well, I have some suggestions, so to speak. And I'm not going to mention any licensed games because, well, just because. And some of you might be thinking, oh, GoldenEye. Well, that's the thing. I don't think GoldenEye is going to be part of the service. I think it's going to be a game you could buy separately. For two reasons. One, it was the way they announced it in the Direct. They didn't really say it was part of the service. And it's also coming to Xbox. I don't know about PlayStation, but anyway, all that aside. The first game is Tetrasphere. Now, 99.9% of gamers know the concept of Tetris. Hell, even non-gamers know the concept of Tetris. This is a little bit different. So basically you have a sphere, which is covered in shapes, and you have to drop more shapes onto the other shapes and blow the shapes away until you eventually make it to the sphere, and you have to keep rotating the sphere and stuff. It's actually um, a very addicting game. It's probably one of the most addicting puzzle games I've ever played. And like any Tetris game, it's got a lot of different modes and stuff, but yeah, very fun game. Next, a hidden gem platformer. It was actually one of the first N64 games I bought. Rocket Robot on Wheels. Now, if you like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, you'd probably enjoy this game, because it's somewhat similar. Like, it's kind of the same thing. You have a hub world, and then you have, basically, like, all these other worlds where you collect tickets, which gives you access to other areas in the hub world and stuff. It's a pretty unique game, actually, because you don't really have a lot of attacks. It's more like you kind of use strategy and stuff. But yeah, like I said, a very underrated platformer. I went more into details with this game in my Hidden Gems platformer game from my 5th gen underrated platformers game video that I did a while back. And other games I mentioned in that video were the Chameleon Twist games and Glover. All these games I think should be added to the service, which, if you want to know more about those, I'll put the link to that video in the description about the Hidden Gem, well, underrated 6th gen platformers. Sorry. 5th gen, excuse me. So, how about some first-person shooters? Well, I know the Turok. One thing that comes to mind is the Turok games. I know I just kind of showed this, but I know the first 2 Turok games are on there. Not the third. I mean, they're not on the service. They're on the Switch, the eShop. You can buy them separately. So, I think it's nice to give people options. Like, you could also put them on the service as well. But there's one Turok game that comes to mind. That's Turok Rage Wars. Very different because it doesn't really have a story. It's strictly multiplayer, like, deathmatch, capture the flag. There's a ton of characters because the way it works is I think you start with 3, and it's like each one of them has like a campaign, which is really just like a series of multiplayer matches with AIs. And what you do is like you beat one character's campaign and you unlock another character. You beat that character's campaign, you unlock another character. I feel like a lot of games from this era did kind of that thing. Well, not a lot, but a number of them did. But But anyway, yeah. Another thing that's interesting about this game is you have. Oh, you also have medals. You can unlock medals for various things. I think it's every 2, I believe you get. You unlock an alternate skin for the characters and stuff, adding more variety and stuff. And also, there's a variety of weapons. Like, basically, there's like 3 classes, like gun classes, if you will. And I think there's like 3 or 4 different types of guns for each class. So the 3 classes include bullet, plasma or energy, and then explosives. And it's like, if I recall correctly, it's like you can pick for your profile or whatever. You pick like 2 bullet weapons, 2 plasma energy or whatever, and 1 explosive. So you can kind of mix and match till you find like a combo that you really excel with. And each gun also has 2 different modes. Like, for example, one of the guns, the shotgun, for example, you can either make it so it shoots twice, or you could do like a double shot. The grenade launcher, you can make it so the grenades either explode on impact, or you can make it so they bounce around a little before exploding. But yeah, I think this game would be perfect for like multiplayer, especially like online multiplayer, because it's like, sure, it's not as like, it doesn't have a story like the mainline Turok games and something, but I feel like it doesn't really get talked about that much, and that's a shame because it's a good game. Speaking of games that tend to be kind of overshadowed, another first-person shooter I think should be added is Perfect Dark, because that's a great game, and I feel like it gets kind of overshadowed by GoldenEye, which, I mean, GoldenEye, great game and all, but so is Perfect Dark. Speaking of hidden gem games by Railware, another one I think could be added is Jet Force Gemini. See, when it comes to Railware N64 games, everybody knows Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Diddy Kong Racing. Nobody ever really talks about this, and that's a shame, because it's a good game. And that rhymed. God, I think this came out in '99. My brother got it for Christmas that year. We were really excited for this. It's a platformer / third-person shooter game with a 50s sci-fi theme. You play as this kid Juno. We're not talking about the Ellen Page character. His sister Vela and their dog Rufus, I think his name is. I don't have a brain fart, but so you play as them. They all have like their different missions as they go from planet to planet, like fighting these insectoid aliens and stuff. The best way to describe this game, well, the mechanics anyway, the gameplay and everything, it's a lot like Star Fox Assault, minus the vehicles and on-rail shooter levels, so it's a little clunky, but it's still a good game. And like I said, nobody really talks about it that much. Next is Bomberman 64. Now, for those of us who grown up in the 90s, like playing the Bomberman games, this was like cool because it was like it's basically like Bomberman's first step into the 3D world. It was, most of us were familiar with him playing on a grid. And I'm surprised there's no Bomberman games on there. I mean, aside from like the Super Bomberman Online and all that stuff, or Super Bomberman R, I'm talking about on the service. But yeah, Bomberman games, because I think this would be perfect for the service, like especially whether it be like online or couch co-op or whatever, because this is a great Bomberman game. It has like, the story, rather than it just being like grid levels and stuff, it was more like, more, not open world, but it has like more open areas, and you have to do some platforming and stuff. The boss battles are really cool. The multiplayer is awesome. It's, like I said, this was Bomberman's first step into the 3D, and I think it did it pretty well, actually. Next is Vigilante 8, which is pretty much like Twisted Metal, but it takes place in the 70s. And another game that I feel like nobody really talks about that much. Now, this was also on the PlayStation. I don't think I could say which one version is better than the other, because, well, both versions had something that I was like, okay, that's cool that this version has it, and it's cool that that version has this, so to speak. Like, in other words, the PlayStation version has like video cutscenes, whereas the N64 version doesn't. You know, it's because N64 couldn't really do like videos and stuff in your cartridge. But the N64 version has four-player split screen. You know, PlayStation version doesn't have that, which yeah. Next, Play Fighter 63 and a third, rather than doing the whole classic 64 thing like they did with every other game. Well, not every other game, but yeah. Again, I'm surprised there's no Play Fighter games on there. You know, and they do have some Interplay games on there, like Earthworm Jim and Claymates and stuff. So clearly, Interplay is adding games, and like I said, I'm surprised they didn't do any of the Play Fighter games. You know, this one had the, you know, you have your returning favorites like Bad Mr. Frosty, the Blob, Taffy, Ichabod Clay, T-Hopper, and there's also some new characters like a sumo wrestler Santa, a karate guy, a witch doctor, hell, even Booger Man and Earthworm Jim, since they're from the same company, Interplay. There was also fatalities, which they call claytalities, even though some of them were pretty lame. Still, it was kind of neat that they added those. And there was actually two different versions of this. I have the more common version. There's another version that's called Sculptor's Cut, which is rare and expensive because it was one of those games you could only rent from Blockbuster. That's why it's rare and expensive, because obviously it was like limited cartridges and stuff. That one had 3 additional characters, so if they do add this game, it would be interesting to see which version they'd add, but I would say go with the Sculptor's Cut, because, again, it's rare and expensive, at least the cartridge is. Last, a couple of Midway arcade games from the late 90s. The first is Rampage World Tour. These games are so much fun. You know, you play as the monsters, you wreck buildings, flip cars over, and eat people. Wait, scratch that one. But, now, there's been a number of Rampage games over the years. Like, I remember the original 80s one. Well, specifically the NES port of it. Then there was a sequel to this called Universal Tour, which was pretty good. There was a time travel one for the PlayStation, also good. Then there was Total Destruction for the GameCube, PS2, etc. Awesome, awesome Rampage game. And I think it was actually the last one to be made. You know, that was like 17 years ago, I think. But this is the one that was always the most nostalgic to me. I know I sound like a broken record, but I think this would be perfect for the expansion pass. And the last one, which, I'll say it one more time, perfect for the expansion pass, Gauntlet Legends. Oh my god. The hours that my friends and family and I dumped into this game, it just, oh my god. I'll admit I liked Dark Legacy better, but this is still a classic, an absolute classic. You know, it's just, like, all the different characters and, like, just the enemies, the bosses, the strategy, the multiplayer, just, oh my god, like, how is this not on the expansion pack? How is it not on there? I mean, I don't know if there's any Midway games on there or not, but still, how is this not on there? How is it not on there? Yeah. Midway, Warner Brothers, whoever. You gotta talk to Nintendo. Get this game on there. Anyway, so those are just some N64 games that I think should be added to the expansion pack. Is there any you can maybe think of? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.